gotta get you all set up. Okay, we could live with this, we could live with this. Hold on first. Let me just get this part together though. Okay, welcome to the live. Welcome, welcome. Welcome to the live. These is the nails that we removing. They already coming off, but we finna get into this Machiavelli mindset, which is the next part. That Machiavelli mindset is something else. I've been listening to it, and it's like, yo, I can't stop listening to the Machiavelli mindset. It's quite crazy. But I ain't gonna hold you. The mindset is legit. The whole Machiavelli movement, the mindset is completely legit. Like, he ain't talking about nothing that's not official. He ain't talking about nothing that's not the truth either. So, without further ado, like I said, these the nails. I already got some gems coming off right there. I know that one is fully on, but y'all can see them up close. A gem that's coming off, came off, a gem that came off there. This one I had just put on, but as you can see, I was eating some peanuts. But yeah, that's the nail. So it's not giving. Hold on, let me put the light on this too while I'm doing this. There you go, right there. There you go. Okay. So it was not giving what I feel like it was supposed to give as far as like the light is concerned. Yes, the light makes it look a little bit better and clearer. Let's chat. So this got a couple gems coming off. This gem came off. So you're gonna just start snapping away. It's gonna get crazy. If our snap game gonna get cray cray. Okay? It's gonna get snappy. That snappy nappy dugout. If you know, you know that snappy nappy dugout. So yeah, here go the nails. These is them up close. Like I was saying, I had did them. I'm gonna start clipping them. But first we finna get into that Machiavelli mindset. It's finna start playing like everything that this dude be talking about.
Certainly aren't mentioned in the polished speeches about morality. There are mistakes in the world of power that are not written in law books, that don't appear in any constitution, and certainly aren't mentioned in the polished speeches about morality or justice. They don't make noise. They don't require swords. They only need tolerance. And the moment you let a wrong action slide, when you turn a blind eye to a tiny fracture in trust, in that very moment, you're writing your own downfall. This isn't a lesson for dreamers. This is not a tale for those who want to live comfortably. This is the raw truth about what destroys empires, what crumbles companies, and what corrupts the soul of any leader who fails to protect what he holds. Because power doesn't just fall. It is eroded, bit by bit, by betrayal, by greed, by those who smile under the lights, but dig graves in the shadows. And if you don't see it, if you don't confront it, you will be devoured, not by the enemies out there, but by the people standing right beside you. Today, we will expose the 7 behaviors that must never be tolerated. The 7 silent poisons that lead to collapse of your throne, your reputation, or your trust. If you're someone who leads, someone others follow, or someone building a life that can't be easily destroyed, stay until the very end. And if what I'm about to say touches a truth you've been denying, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this message with the men who need to wake up Because sometimes, your survival doesn't depend on how strong you are, but on how clearly you see what must never be forgiven.
These are things to never forgive,
People
y'all.
often say that loyalty can only be measured over time, but Machiavelli went further. He didn't measure
Machiavelli.
loyalty in months or years. He measured it through crisis, because when the sky is clear, anyone can make grand promises. When money is flowing, everyone can pretend to be honorable. But when the ship begins to shake, when the storm rolls in, when blood starts to spill and flames begin to spread, that's when you'll know who truly stands with you and who only stood for the victory. You've seen them, the ones who show up at your celebrations, drink with you, laugh with you, clap your back as if they'd die for you, and then you fail. Your power falters.
Them
They
back
vanish as if they
clappers.
never existed. No message, no gesture,
Them
just
back
absence
clappers.
and a chilling silence that speaks louder than any word. Even worse is when you survive, when you rise from the ashes, and they come back with apologies wrapped in reasons. I didn't know what to do. I had things to handle. I wanted to help, but I wasn't sure. Don't believe them, because nothing is louder than silence when you needed them most. Someone who can abandon you once will do it again and again. If you let them, if you forgive a betrayal out of weakness, you're sending a silent message to your entire system. There are no consequences for betrayal. And from that moment on, loyalty around you is no longer genuine. It's conditional, based solely on your power. You'll be surrounded by those who don't admire you, but calculate whether you're still worth following. And at that point, you are no longer the leader. You're just another figure being weighed and judged in a storm. You don't need an army. You need one person who will stand beside you when everything is collapsing. That one person is worth more than 100 who vanish when the winds rise. Machiavelli emphasized, betrayal is not just personal. It is a fracture in the foundation of power. Because when your subordinates see that you can be abandoned, they will believe that you are no longer untouchable. And from that moment on, your power is no longer a certainty. It becomes a role waiting for someone else to claim. Remember this. No one stays loyal to a leader left in isolation. And the one who disappears when you need them most will be the first to stab you in the back when you're at your weakest. They'll wear your colors, sit at your table, nod in your presence, but vanish when their strength was needed the most. You might think, they probably had a good reason, but Machiavelli would look you in the eye and say, absence is a statement. It doesn't need words. It is a choice. And that choice is never accidental. So when you call and no one answers, when you fall and no one reaches out, don't seek reasons. Remember faces. And if you survive the storm, never let those faces return to their old positions. Because every time you forgive someone like that, you're writing a new rule for everyone else. You don't have to be loyal. Just return at the right time. That's not how you build an empire. That's how you rot it from the inside out. There is nothing more dangerous than a coward sitting on a throne. You might think that ruthless enemies are the greatest threat. You might believe it's secret conspiracies or betrayals in the shadows that destroy empires. But no, Machiavelli made it clear the fastest way to dismantle a kingdom is to place a leader in charge who fears his own
Taking the
power.
nails off.
Cowardice doesn't always show itself through trembling hands. It's not just downcast eyes or hesitant steps. It often hides behind fake morality, camouflaged as careful deliberation, wrapped in the excuse of needing more time to discuss. But in reality, it's the avoidance of responsibility. It's hesitation when the moment calls for action.
I'm gonna put
It's
on
the
some
quiet
more.
fear that one wrong decision could cost everything. A leader like that doesn't just destroy his own credibility. He spreads doubt through every level beneath him. When the man at the top refuses to command, when his eyes constantly search for others to make the call, When even the smallest decisions need unanimous agreement, those who follow will stop believing in his leadership. And when trust collapses, you don't need enemies. The kingdom will tear itself apart. Imagine you're a general on the battlefield. The enemy is closing in. You look up at your commander, and you see him hesitating, second-guessing, stalling, while every second that passes could cost lives. Would you still believe in him? Or would you start thinking about your own exit plan? That's how fear spreads like a sickness. It seeps from the top down, and it shatters order. Machiavelli understood this. Every second of hesitation in a leader is a knife to the heart of the system. An army doesn't fear its enemies. It fears a commander who doesn't know what to do. Leadership is not about waiting for certainty. It's the art of acting in the midst of doubt. No one can guarantee the right decision, but strength means taking the risk when it matters. And in that very moment, when every eye is watching, when silence hangs heavy in the air, the true leader steps forward and says, "Move forward," not because he's fearless, but because he knows if he shows fear, everything falls apart. Some people fake morality to hide their fear of action. They speak of peace, of moderation, of ethics. But look closer. They're not afraid of doing the wrong thing. They're afraid of doing the right thing because it's hard. They don't sit back to think. They sit back to run from responsibility. A true leader doesn't hide behind councils, doesn't bury himself in endless meetings, doesn't wait for someone else to decide for him. He knows this power doesn't belong to the one waiting for certainty. It belongs to the one bold enough to act without it. Because that's the only thing that keeps power alive in a world that never stops shifting action. Decisiveness. Clarity. If you want to keep your throne, if you want to keep their trust, you must learn to act first and explain later. And above all else, never let fear disguise itself as calm restraint. People may respect a ruthless leader, but they will despise the one who doesn't have the courage to lead. There's a certain type of person who never disagrees with you. They always nod, always praise, always say, "You're right." And strangely enough, they are the sweetest danger in the halls of power. Machiavelli wasn't afraid of the enemy in front of him. He feared the one standing behind him, the one who kept telling him how great he was, because enemies keep you alert. But flatterers lull you into illusion. Flattery is a form of poison. It doesn't kill instantly. It slowly erodes your judgment,
Flattery is a
destroys your
form
inner
of
strength,
poison.
and
That's
turns a leader
crazy.
into a puppet of his own inflated ego. Flatterers aren't loyal to you. They're loyal to the opportunity of being near power. They don't tell you what you need to hear.
And I'm going to just tell y'all this for real. He is so right. Flattery is a form of poison. Remember, I told you I used to be a extrovert witness. I'm an extrovert witness, right? So when I was studying with this lady, she would always try to flatter me and like love bomb me and stuff. And she knew things that I feel like she should have told me, and she didn't tell me till after the fact. And I was like, wow, it's so crazy to sit here and listen to him say that, because I could really attest to that being completely true. He got some really good information. Some of this stuff is like stuff that's like, dang, you don't really want to hear it, but you don't really want that to be the truth. Because I used to be like that. I used to be like, man, I don't really want this to be how people really are. People play games and they hide who they really are, for real. They really hide who they are. Once I said I didn't want to be a part of the organization anymore, all of that flattery, all of that I love you, all of that you're my friend, she stopped talking to me. I don't talk to her no more. We was reading the Bible together and everything. Every week she would do a scripture. Every week we would do scriptures, and we would call each other and like be accountability partners. After that, no matter all of that flattery and all of that stuff, she didn't want to be my friend no more. She didn't want to talk to me. So all of that was like technically like a lie. I was like, yo, that's crazy. And I was like, that's crazy. But yeah, please like the live. Please subscribe. I'm gonna let him keep cooking, cause he cooking.
They tell you what you want to hear. And once you start enjoying it, you lose the truth. You think you're being supported. But really, you're surrounded by mirrors, reflections of yourself,
Can you like the live,
where every
please?
opposing voice is drowned out by fake applause. A true leader doesn't need sweet words. He needs warnings. He needs people who have the courage to say, "You're wrong." True loyalty can be uncomfortable. It dares to challenge. It dares to push back. It says the things you don't want to hear because it cares about your survival. But flattery is a subtle form of manipulation. It doesn't stab you. It disorients you. It strips away your standards. It makes you lose the ability to assess yourself. When a leader becomes addicted to praise, he becomes blind to the dangers closing in. Because no one dares to warn him. No one dares to confront him. No one wants to ruin the praise party. And then, when the shock hits, when power collapses, those who once praised you will be the first to turn away, because they were never loyal to you. They were loyal to the strength you once had. And when that strength disappears, they will switch sides with the same flattery, the same face, the same voice. Machiavelli warned, never confuse a flatterer with a loyal ally. A loyal person might make you uncomfortable, but they will never let you self-destruct. A flatterer, once you fall from your throne, will vanish, or worse, will lead your execution, all while wearing the same soft smile. So take a good look around you. Who always agrees with everything you say? Who has never said no to you? Who always knows the perfect moment to compliment you? That's not an ally. That's a parasite feeding off your pride. If you want to hold on to power, you must be strong enough to hear the truth, and sharp enough to recognize the one who's lying to you in the sweetest way. A compliment at the wrong time can be far more dangerous than a timely objection. Power doesn't just come from weapons, laws, or titles. It exists in the belief that the person in charge is untouchable. A fragile belief, but one that holds entire empires together. And then, all it takes is one mocking laugh in public. One joke made about your orders in front of a crowd. One man bold enough to challenge you not behind closed doors, but under the spotlight. In that moment, your power is cut for the first time. Machiavelli understood this well. A public challenge doesn't have to overthrow you. It just has to plant a seed in other people's minds. If he can speak out, why can't he? A single doubtful glance, a whisper, a rumor, and suddenly, the crowd starts to smell blood. No one attacks you with weapons. They attack with questions. They don't need to lead a rebellion. They just need others to start thinking that you can be replaced. And once people stop believing you're untouchable, they begin testing your limits. They ignore your orders. They criticize you bit by bit. They push boundaries just to see what you'll do. And if you do nothing, if you laugh it off, if you let it slide to preserve your image, if you show tolerance in front of the crowd, you've just lost the most sacred element of power, fear. Power doesn't require senseless cruelty, but it demands that no public defiance goes unpunished, because the cost isn't just an insult. It's the look in the eyes of those around you. It's the mind silently asking, is he really in control? A public challenge left
Stephanie,
unanswered
can you like the live, please?
doesn't just cost you respect. It gives every other rebel permission to follow suit. And just like that, you're no longer leading. You're on a stage where every word you say is being weighed,
live?
where others begin to play the role of critic to steal the spotlight.
Stephanie,
and you, the one who once directed
off.
the play, are now just another supporting actor in your own power game. Some will disguise themselves in morality, saying they only want to improve the kingdom, that they're not against you, They're just speaking the truth. Don't be fooled. Anyone who publicly places their virtue above your authority is quietly claiming they deserve to rule instead of you. Don't be distracted by eloquent words. Don't be deceived by the crowd's silence, because if you allow it, if you don't act, you've handed your challenger the most powerful weapon, precedent. And once a precedent is set, it becomes a path for every other opportunist waiting in the wings. A protest left unpunished is a public license
Can we
for
get
the
a
next
like on
one.
the chat?
You don't need to crush every disagreement. You don't need to punish private opinions. But any public defiance must be addressed. Not out of ego, but because every eye is on you. They're not listening to your words. They're watching how you react when challenged. And from that, they decide whether you're the true leader or just a man desperately clinging to a throne that's already slipping. If this message speaks to a truth you felt but never voiced, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to follow the next part. In the world of power,
Thank you
your
for the
enemy is not
like.
always the one who opposes you. Sometimes, it's the one you once saved, the one you lifted with your heart and your influence, the one you believed in. And when the storm hits, they're the first to drive the knife into your back. Machiavelli warned us, nothing erodes power faster than ingratitude. Why? Because ingratitude is not just forgetting a debt. It is a silent declaration that your kindness no longer matters, that what you gave, what you sacrificed, what you protected is not worth remembering, not worth loyalty. And that is the coldest form of betrayal. No swords, no noisy, just silent withdrawal. When you are at your weakest, the ungrateful feel no guilt. They feel entitled. They don't see loyalty as a moral bond. They see it as a transaction. And when the transaction ends, they believe they owe you nothing. Worse, if they see your position shaking, they won't just walk away. They will use their former closeness to you to align themselves with your enemies. With whispers like, "I used to be close to him. I know where to strike." And do you know the most painful part? You opened the door for them. You trusted them. You gave them a platform. Now, they stand tall enough to tear down everything you built. Machiavelli never told us to stop giving. But he did warn us never invest in barren ground. Never grant mercy to those who lack gratitude, lack integrity, and lack principle. Mercy isn't just kindness. It is a tool for building influence. When given to the right person, it creates an ally. When given to the wrong one, it feeds a parasite that corrodes trust from within. Because the ungrateful are loyal to no one. They're loyal to gain. They take, they use, they consume, but they never protect. They never preserve. And they never return loyalty. You'll see them everywhere. When you're at the top, they swarm like bees to honey. Their words overflow with gratitude. Their actions make you feel like you're the most important person in the world. But when you fall, when the spotlight fades, you'll watch them disappear faster than the words "thank you." And if you're lucky enough to rise again, they'll come back. Same face, same voice. But this time, with a new plan to gain your trust even further. Machiavelli advised, never let gratitude become hope. Let it become a test. And once the test fails, never test again. The ungrateful do not change. They just become better at hiding.
You understand
So
that?
how do you recognize them?
Can
Watch
you
how
hear
they
the
react when you
Machiavelli
stop giving.
video in the background?
They
Leave a comment
distance
in the
themselves.
chat.
They go cold. They stop caring. Because to them, you only have value as long as you have something to offer. When a leader tolerates ingratitude, when you continue to feed traitors, you don't just lose resources. You lose the foundation of your power. Because the one you raised up knows your weak points, knows how you think, knows you're quick to forgive. And they'll use that very
That's
knowledge
my
to
mic
finish
on
you.
there.
Remember this: gratitude cannot be demanded, but ingratitude must be punished. Never give a second chance to the one who once betrayed you. Because if you do, the entire court, the entire organization, the entire world will learn this. Treason isn't dangerous. Failure is. If this message hits a truth you felt before, if you've been disappointed by those you once helped, hit subscribe. Because
That's
we
why you
still
don't
have
help
more to
nobody.
uncover about power,
Can you hear
about people,
the
and
Machiavelli in the
about
background?
awakening. And I want you here when we expose what's hiding behind the mask. Ambition, in itself, is not a bad thing. Machiavelli once said, "Ambition is the engine of empires. It pushes the mediocre to rise. It gives the weak the courage to break through their limits. It is the fire inside a man who wants more than fate has handed him. But when ambition is not paired with loyalty, it stops being a force of construction and becomes a hidden blade aimed at the heart of power. A man with ambition and no ties belongs to no one, serves no one, respects no one. He may perform brilliantly, he may speak well,
Here it is.
please every faction, remain neutral in every dispute. But that neutrality is a mask. Beneath it is a soul loyal only to himself. This is not someone you can trust. This is an opportunist waiting for his moment. He doesn't rebel. He watches. He doesn't strike head on. He records your every mistake, every weakness you reveal when you step back, when you hesitate in a meeting, or when you foolishly believe, everyone here is on my side. And then, when the moment comes, when the throne starts to tremble, when doubt creeps into the hearts of men, he will be the first to rise. As the new solution, he doesn't want to serve power. He wants to replace it. If you're in charge, and you spot a man with exceptional talent, a powerful will, but no long-term commitment, no visible loyalty, be careful. You have only two options. Either bind him tightly to your destiny, or destroy him before he becomes a threat. Because once he grows strong enough and slips beyond your control, his very existence becomes a danger to your reign. These men are masters of hiding. They never openly disagree. They never speak too loudly. They never show their cards. They're so polished, you mistake them for harmless. But in truth, they're waiting for your slip. They'll help you only when it helps them. And when you truly need them, they vanish. You'll notice them rejecting compliments in public, but seeking validation behind closed doors. They avoid commitment, but they're always present when power is shifting hands. They are like shadows, silent, patient, and never gone. Machiavelli taught us, never ambitious men roam free for too long. Tie them down with interest, fear, and a future that is bound to yours. If you can't control them, never let them rise. Don't be fooled by skill. Don't be blinded by temporary usefulness. Because no matter how brilliant he is, a man without loyalty is a ticking time bomb in your kingdom. Ask yourself, will this man still stand with me if I lose my power? If your answer is I'm not sure, he's not an ally. He's a candidate for your throne. And when that day comes, he won't steal your power with noise. He'll take it, as if he deserved it all along. If you've ever known someone like this, charming, neutral, always in the middle, yet you could never quite grasp where their loyalty lies, leave a comment. You're not alone. And if what you've just heard made you see certain people around you in a different light, subscribe to this channel. Because this isn't the final video, we've still got many secrets to uncover about power, betrayal, and how to stay awake among those who smile, but are only waiting for you to fall. Some people never raise their voices. They don't carry swords. They don't threaten, rebel, or openly oppose. And yet, they still managed to bring down the strongest of empires. Not with violence, but with a weapon called morality. Machiavelli saw this dangerous game long before it became common. He understood that when morality is used as a tool to attack power, it's no longer about integrity. It becomes the mask of ambition. There are people who march under banners of justice.
Hold on. Hello? Okay. Hi. No. I told you when I was able to make a payment. these stalkers calling me. Let me know if you can hear the Machiavelli in the background
About
in the
who sits
chat.
on the throne. Why? Because when they stand up to challenge you on moral grounds, they don't just want change. They want your place. It's the oldest trick in politics to win the people by asking seemingly innocent questions. Is he truly a good man? Don't we deserve a better leader? They don't want answers. They want doubt. And once a leader is forced to explain, to justify, to prove his innocence, his authority is already shaking. A ruler should not be chosen because he is moral, but because he is strong, decisive, and able to maintain order. But moral manipulators know this. Society prefers nice over effective, so they use the crowd's expectations of goodness to target those in power. They create an impossible ideal, then condemn you for not matching it. They will say you're heartless, that you lack
Sophie, be
compassion,
quiet.
that you've grown cold toward the people, all while secretly counting the days until they can take your place. And the most dangerous part, if you respond, you're seen as a tyrant. If you stay silent, you're seen as guilty. That's the trap. You're not allowed to win. Only lose in small pieces, or all at once. This is why Machiavelli warned. Never let morality become the rope that tightens around your throne. Never let the crowd believe that a teary speech can force you to surrender your position. Because once you give moral judgment emotional power over authority, then tomorrow, anyone who can pretend to feel for the people can replace you. When you allow one person to weaponize morality against you, you're not just facing a single enemy. You've triggered a wave. Others will follow. They'll learn the script. They'll realize you don't need justice. You just need to perform. You don't have to be cruel to the truly ethical. But if someone pretends to be virtuous just to destroy you, you cannot afford to be soft. Don't let poetic speeches distract you from the truth. Real morality is usually quiet. Fake morality always needs an audience. The truly ethical will speak to you in private.
I ain't
They will
gonna lie to
advise
you,
you
Jehovah's
quietly.
Witnesses is like
But the one who
that.
gets on a stage to call you out in front of the crowd is not there to correct you. They are there to replace you. And if you don't act, if you keep tolerating these saints with a taste for preaching, your throne will turn into a podium for someone else's performance. If you've ever been manipulated by someone using morality to control you, to shame you, to make you feel guilty for not doing what
It's
they
people in the
deemed
Kingdom
right,
Hall that be sinning, but
leave a
they
comment below.
give people that
We need to call this
are
game
not
by
a
its
part of the
real name.
organization a hard
And if you
time.
want to dive deeper into
I
the
think that's quite
psychological
crazy.
strategies used to bring strong people
Even
down,
though Jesus came and
hit
died for our
subscribe,
sins, it's quite
because
crazy.
there's still so much you haven't heard. And maybe no one had the courage to tell you until now. We've just walked through 7 behaviors that, according to Machiavelli, no leader should ever tolerate. Not because they're loud or obvious, but because they quietly destroy power from within. Betrayal during crisis, revealing that loyalty only exists when the weather is calm. Cowardice in leadership, turning a strong organization into a lost battalion. Flattery disguised as loyalty, lulling the leader into a false dream. Public challenges to authority, breaking the illusion of invincibility that power needs to survive.
Can we get another like?
Ingratitude after
There's 2
mercy,
people in here. Can we
twisting
get another
kindness
like,
into a
please, if
weakness to
possible?
exploit. Ambition without loyalty, creating challengers dressed as assistants. And finally, using morality as a weapon, turning the image of the leader into a defendant standing before the emotional court of the crowd. If you're leading, if you're building, if you're in a position others look up to, etch this into your mind. True power doesn't come from being liked. It comes from knowing exactly what cannot be forgiven. Because the moment you tolerate a betrayal, a sycophant, a public challenge, an act of ingratitude, you're not just forgiving a person, you're writing a new law for everyone else, watching. And when the time comes for you to act, you may find you have no army, no allies, No one truly loyal, because they all learned one thing from you. You did nothing. Loyalty isn't required. Only good timing is. That's not how empires are built. That's how they rot from the inside out. Under the softness of a leader, too afraid to draw a line. Machiavelli never taught you to be cruel. He taught you to see clearly, because power, if not protected with sharp vision, will be eaten alive by those smiling at your side. Collapse doesn't come from the outside. It comes from the things you chose to ignore. So, watch closely. Learn the difference between true and false loyalty. Punish early so you don't have to punish often. And never let your throne become a hot seat for anyone bold enough to challenge you in the name of virtue. If you're still here by the end of this video, I believe you're not the kind of man who gets manipulated by smiles or tears. You want to see the truth behind people. You want to keep your position not by being nice, but by standing firm and uncompromising. Hit that subscribe button, because we will keep exposing the masks, breaking down the psychology of power, and learning how to become the kind of man who cannot be overthrown in a world where kindness is seen as weakness, and strength is the only thing still respected.
So this we got so far. We still gotta take off the rest of the stuff on there, but I'm gonna get another video on because this stuff is real tea. And this is real tea. The Machiavelli mindset. Talk about everything. Okay, this one is called...
Are you feeling overwhelmed trying to keep up with notes during meetings? Worried you'll miss something important?
This one is called Machiavelli's Dark but Honest Advice to Good People. The Art of Power. Okay. This one says, it's a quote from Machiavelli. It says, "You weren't destroyed because you were too kind. You were destroyed because you were too accepted." I'm going to read it again. It says, "You weren't destroyed because you were too kind. You were destroyed because you were too expected." Okay, that kind of doesn't make sense to me, but that's what I'm here for, to understand this stuff, okay?
You weren't destroyed by your enemies. You were dismantled by the ones who smiled, by the ones who said, "I carry."
Never trust to be
Right before they took something from you, by those who praised your patience as they tested its limits. And when it hurt, you stayed quiet, because that's what you were taught to do. You believed being good would protect you. That showing up, forgiving, explaining would one day be enough. But it wasn't. It only taught them one thing. You'd never leave. You weren't weak. You were predictable, too available, too readable. And in a world where attention is currency, you made yourself cheap. That's the bitter truth. The world doesn't respect the ones who are always there. It respects the ones who know how to leave without warning, without explanation, without fear. Machiavelli never told you to be cruel. He told you to be untouchable, unpredictable, unignorable. He warned. The kind-hearted, without boundaries, are not admired, they're consumed. And you kept showing up, even when it cost you everything. You thought your presence was love, but to them, it became background noise. So now you're here, not because you're soft, but because you've reached your limit. And something inside you, the part you've buried for years, is waking up. The silence you once used to avoid conflict is about to become your greatest weapon, because power doesn't live in kindness alone. It lives in the moment they feel your absence and flinch. There's a kind of pain no one ever talks about. It leaves no bruises. It doesn't scream. It doesn't bleed. It just waits. It's in the smile you fake when someone interrupts you again. In the way you say I'm fine while your chest tightens like a vice. It's the pause before you speak. The silence after they ignore you. The 1,000 quiet moments when you swallow your truth just to avoid making others uncomfortable. You didn't choose invisibility. You were trained into it. They called it being mature, easygoing, understanding. But what they really meant was, you're convenient. You don't make us deal with your humanity. So you stayed silent, smiling when you wanted to scream, giving when you were empty, apologizing for taking up space even when no one asked you to. And the worst part, they didn't even notice. Because pain like this doesn't collapse in public. It blends in. It wears your face. It picks up the phone, shows up early, stays late. And when it finally breaks, it does so in silence. You thought being low maintenance made you lovable? That if you made their lives easier, they'd hold on tighter.
Nope, doesn't work.
But all it did was train them to expect you without effort. You became predictable. And predictable people don't get protected.
Nope.
They get used.
And abused.
You never exploded.
Baby.
You never raised your voice. You just disappeared a little each day. Until one morning, you looked in the mirror and realized you weren't angry. You weren't broken. You were just fading. The death of the dependable isn't loud. It's slow. It's quiet. It's the erosion of someone who gave too much for too long without ever being asked how they were doing. But here's the part no one warns you about. You taught them. You trained them. Every time you stayed quiet.
Yep, you teach people how to treat you.
Every time you forgave without a consequence. Every time you made peace instead of making truth. You thought love would come if you just kept showing up. But it didn't. Because love that ignores your limits isn't love. It's consumption.
This video right here never really existed. It got over 8 million views. It's one of the first videos that is completely AI generated, that has gone viral and is making its owner hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue. The AI revolution is here. You can either cry about it or you take advantage of it, because I've created a
convenience. It's control. Wearing a gentle face. And that little voice inside the one you've been shushing for years. It's getting louder. It's not asking anymore. It's warning you. Enough. Enough bleeding in silence. Enough shrinking to fit inside someone else's comfort zone. Enough explaining pain to people who benefit from your confusion. Because something is changing now. Not in them. In you. You no longer want to be the one who always understands. You want to be understood without begging. You want space without justifying it. You want to be missed, not expected. And here's what happens when that shift begins. You stop answering texts that feel like traps. You stop saying it's okay when it's not. You stop softening your voice to avoid sounding too much. You stop handing out your presence like a free trial to people who never subscribed to your worth in the first place. And they'll notice. Not because you yell. Not because you fight. But because you stop dancing around their comfort. Your silence becomes expensive. Your distance becomes a question. And your absence becomes the first time they realize they were never entitled to you. Machiavelli said, "It is better to be feared than loved." If you cannot be both, not because fear is power, but because fear means consequence. And consequence is what finally makes people reconsider how they treat you. Sonu, you're not cruel. You're clear. You're done negotiating your worth in whispers. You're done training people to forget your fire. Because the version of you that was always available just died. And the one replacing it doesn't chase, doesn't explain, doesn't
Period.
return just because they finally noticed you were gone. If they keep crossing your boundaries, it's not always because they're cruel. It's because they were never shown they existed. Because you were never taught to build them. From the moment you could speak, you were praised for being agreeable, smiled at when you stayed quiet, rewarded for being easy, called mature when you swallowed pain without blinking. You didn't become soft by chance. You were shaped into it, sculpted by a culture that fears directness and punishes clarity. They trained you not to be strong. They trained you to be tolerable. You were taught to avoid tension, to bend, to be digestible, to give not with discernment, but with obedience. But here's the problem. When you become too easy to digest, people consume you without ever tasting your worth. They won't remember your patience. They won't cherish your silence. They'll just keep reaching for more because your lack of resistance tells them it's safe to take. This isn't just social. This is systemic. You learn the rules early. Don't speak too loud. Don't take up too much space. Don't make others uncomfortable even when they're hurting you. This is not a personality trait. This is programming. You were taught that goodness means surrender. That value means being needed. That love means never causing conflict. And now, you walk into rooms like an apology. You speak not to express truth, but to avoid offense. You offer yourself in fragments, hoping someone will assemble you into something lovable. But Machiavelli knew better. Centuries ago, he wrote the line, "No one wants to admit today, men are quick to forget benefits, but slow to forget injuries. They don't remember your kindness. They remember your silence. They remember how easy it was to ignore you, how free your forgiveness came, how low the cost was to hurt you. Because we're not as evolved as we pretend. Behind suits and smartphones and pleasantries,
Teenagers are building businesses with AI while the only AI you know is ChatGPT. To the people over 40 who
we're still animals, drawn to strength, wired for hierarchy. And unconsciously, we test people not with cruelty, but with calculation. Can I take from them without paying a price? And if the answer is yes, they will.
You see how
Not
raggedy
because they're
people
evil,
is? They
but
raggedy out
because
here.
systems reward takers, families, corporations, classrooms. They elevate the bold and forget the quiet givers. Look around. The loud get heard. The confident get chosen. The ruthless get respected because their standards make others uncomfortable.
Make
And
it
the
think.
kind-hearted, they get told to wait, to be grateful, to keep giving, to be patient for recognition that never comes. This is not morality. This is machinery. And unless you break it, it will break you. That's why Machiavelli never preached purity. He preached perception. Power isn't about being loved. It's about being felt. It's about walking into a room and shifting the temperature without raising your voice. So, here's the shift. Stop begging to be understood in a system that only respects power. Start becoming unreadable. Start becoming undeniable. Start becoming unconsumable. You don't need to shout. You don't need to fight. You just need to stop handing out your peace like candy. Because when your presence is always available, your absence means nothing. But when you reclaim your energy, when your silence becomes deliberate, when your time feels expensive, when your gaze is no longer seeking approval, they feel it. Suddenly, they wonder, what changed? Why does the air feel different? And that's when the recalibration begins. Not because you demanded respect, but because you became the kind of person who no longer offers their essence for free. So if they keep crossing your boundaries, stop asking what's wrong with them and start asking what you've been tolerating too long. Because morality without strength becomes martyrdom, and patience without limits becomes a playground for the cruel. Machiavelli's harshest truth wasn't about war or politics. It was this. The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present. In other words, don't expect others to honor your kindness unless they feel the weight of disappointing you. So the next time someone wonders, do they like me? Make sure the better question is, do they fear losing me? You don't need to be cruel to lose respect. You just need to be too easy to reach, too always there, too quick to respond,
Too expected. Okay, I get it now.
to draw a line. Most people think invisibility happens when you stay quiet. But often, it happens when you speak too much, show up too fast, give too soon, and suddenly, you disappear, not because you shrank, but because they stopped seeing you. You thought your loyalty would earn you reverence, but it only taught them one thing. You'll show up, no matter how they treat you. That's not love. That's predictability. And predictable people are rarely protected. They're managed until they're no longer useful. Let's break this down. Mistake number 1. Overexposure. You thought visibility meant value. So you kept showing up, texting first, checking in, explaining yourself in paragraphs, letting them know they're always on your mind. But Machiavelli warned a prince must learn to conceal his intentions. Why? Because the second someone can read your entire soul like an open book, they stop opening the pages. Mystery creates gravity. Predictability creates boredom. The most respected people, they're not constantly accessible. They're intentional with presence.
Pivot City Gear has all the looks you need to make a statement this spring. Express yourself with,
And in doing so, they become rare. Reversal. You thought availability made you feel close. It only made your presence easier to take for granted. Mistake number 2, believing good intentions are enough. You meant well. You gave because you cared. You forgave because you valued peace. But here's the brutal truth. People don't respond to what you meant. They respond to how you made them feel about themselves. If your kindness made them feel safe, they'll admire you. If it made them feel guilty, they'll resent you. If it made them feel superior, they'll use you. Intention is invisible. Perception is everything. Reversal. You thought your sincerity would be understood. It wasn't, because you were speaking the language of loyalty to people fluent in convenience. Mistake number 3. Giving before you're valued. You wanted to connect, to be trusted, to be chosen. So you gave first. Your time, your attention, your vulnerability, hoping they'd give back once they saw your heart. But humans don't work that way. We don't value what's free. We value what costs us something. Machiavelli understood this well. He never said don't give. He said give with strategy. Give when it builds trust, not when it buys hope. Reversal. You thought generosity would inspire reciprocity, but without standards. It just inspired entitlement. Mistake number 4. Avoiding conflict to preserve peace. You feared that drawing a boundary would push them away. So you stayed quiet, smiled through the tension, made excuses for their disrespect, chose comfort over confrontation again. But what you didn't realize is that every time you avoid a necessary conflict, you destroy the relationship just a little slower. Machiavelli would call that a betrayal. Not of them, of yourself. Men ought either to be well treated or crushed. Because in the middle lies manipulation, reversal. You thought silence was keeping the peace. It wasn't. It was keeping them comfortable with crossing your line. Now here's what most good people don't realize. The world doesn't honor invisible sacrifice. It forgets it. You think your endless patience makes you strong. But to them, it just means you'll never leave. You think being the bigger person makes you worthy. But they've learned you'll carry the weight of their mistakes too. You thought they'd finally see your value, but you were training them to look away. So here's your pivot point. Stop giving love as a strategy. Stop using kindness as currency. Stop offering loyalty without leverage. Make your silence mean something. Make your forgiveness conditional. Make your presence felt like a rare privilege, not a routine. Because the moment you stop offering the best of you to people who haven't earned it, is the moment they stop assuming it's theirs by default. Strength isn't always loud. It doesn't always come wrapped in muscles or medals. Sometimes it's quiet, cold, sharp like a blade hidden behind still eyes. You've been told your whole life that goodness would protect you, that if you gave enough, stayed soft enough, forgave often enough, they'd value you. But they didn't.
They
Not
won't.
because you weren't good, but because you were predictable. In a world driven by perception, what people can predict, they stop respecting. You made yourself easy to read, easy to reach, easy to use. You tried to be the light, but no one ever taught you the value of shadow, of boundaries, of consequence, because that's where power lives. Not in how much you love, but in what you'll never tolerate again. Not in how many chances you give, but in the weight of your silence when you're done. They told you to be kind, but they forgot to teach you how to be dangerous. Not to others, but to the systems that keep draining you. There is a version of you, buried beneath politeness, beneath self-doubt, beneath the need to be liked. And that version, it doesn't ask to be respected. It simply is. It walks into a room and changes the temperature without saying a word. It doesn't overshare. It doesn't explain. It doesn't flinch when someone questions its worth. Because it's no longer trying to be understood. It's done performing for approval. See, real power isn't about domination. It's about ownership of your mind, your time, your voice. And to own those things, you'll need to reclaim parts of yourself. You were told to hide your anger, not as rage, but as boundary. Your silence not as fear, but as consequence. Your solitude not as emptiness, but as self-respect. The people who rise in this world aren't always the kindest. They're the clearest. The ones who know how to hold their energy. The ones who don't explain their distance, they embody it. Because when you're calm and unreadable and still undeniably felt, you stop being an option.
Looks fake, but everyone's using this to tan without the sun. I did some digging, aka stalked my friends, and turns out it's Sorrel drops.
You start being a presence. So if you're tired of being overlooked, it's not because you're not enough. It's because you haven't let them feel what it means to lose you. And maybe now, you finally understand. It's not about being feared or loved. It's about being respected. And respect doesn't come from softness. It comes from clarity, from weight, from becoming someone they can no longer afford to misunderstand. Change never begins in the hands. It starts in the mind. In that small, quiet voice that finally dares to ask, what if I've been wrong about everything I thought made me worthy? You believed if you were kind enough, calm enough, patient enough, They'd see your heart, but they didn't. Because worth isn't proven by how much you give. It's revealed by what you refuse to tolerate. You weren't overlooked because you were weak. You were overlooked because you were too available to be noticed, too soft to be feared, too forgiving to be felt. They didn't see your value because you trained them not to. That's the hardest truth to swallow. Every it's okay when it wasn't. Every smile to keep the peace. Every second chance you handed out without earning one back was a lesson. You taught them your silence had no consequence. Your love had no boundary. And your presence had no price. But here's the shift. You stop asking, do they like me? And start asking, do I like who I become around them? You stop begging to stay and start deciding who deserves access at all. You stop seeing rejection as failure. You start seeing it as filtering. Because now, your peace costs something. Your time isn't on clearance. Your love isn't a discount. You don't give because you're afraid to lose people. You give because someone proved they're safe to receive it. And if they're not, you walk calmly, quietly, without slamming doors, without leaving notes. You just disappear. Because the new you doesn't need closure. The new you is the closure. That's what happens when clarity replaces desperation. You stop auditioning for roles in stories that shrink you. You stop solving red flags like puzzles. You stop translating disrespect into maybe they're just hurting. You stop explaining your standards like they're a crime. And suddenly, they notice the silence. They feel your absence. They replay every moment trying to find the one where they lost access to you. And you don't even look back. Because this is what strength looks like now. Not louder, not meaner, just unavailable to what once drained you. Philosophy means nothing if it never touches your spine. Knowing isn't enough. Power has to be lived. So here's how it begins. E. Stop over-explaining. You don't owe anyone your reasons. Let your no stand without decoration. Let your silence say what your words used to beg for. Next time someone asks, why didn't you reply? Let the pause answer for you. Let the quiet feel heavier than any explanation ever could. R. Make your words expensive. Don't speak to be liked. Speak to be felt. Every word should cost something. Every pause should carry tension. You don't need to talk more. You need to talk less and mean more. When you speak, let it shift the room. R. Control your body before the room. Power walks slowly. Power doesn't fidget. Power holds eye contact. 1 second longer than comfort allows. Your presence should say, I don't need to prove anything. I just am. Because the body speaks before the mouth. Make sure it speaks with stillness.
Ladies over 180 pounds. Start your 7-minute indoor walking routine for cortisol detox.
Not desperation. C. Disengage without drama. Not every insult needs a reply. Not every battle needs your fire. When they test you, don't react. Don't explain. Don't justify. Just finish. Quietly. Fully. Let the silence choke them. They won't remember what you said. They'll remember that you said nothing and never returned. Woo. Raise the price of access. Your time is not cheap. Your peace is not public property. Your heart is not a donation box. Before you let someone in, ask, do they bring clarity or chaos? Respect or excuses? Because if they cost you your peace, they were too expensive from the start. Luke, give like a strategist, not a savior. Giving isn't weakness. But giving without discernment is dangerous. Don't give to prove you're good. Give to reward what's proven to be loyal. Give from fullness, not from fear. If there's no overflow, wait. Sometimes, silence is the most generous thing you can offer. Here's the truth no one wants to say. You don't need to fight. You don't need to threaten. You don't even need to speak. You just need to disappear from where you're disrespected. And when you return, if you do, make sure it's not out of guilt. Make sure it's because they've changed, or you've outgrown needing them to. Because real power, it's not in what you control. It's in what no longer controls you. Strength doesn't look the way it used to. It's not raised voices, not fists on the table, not yelling to be heard. Real strength is quieter now. It walks in and changes the air. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't chase attention. It doesn't need to be understood to be felt. This kind of strength doesn't beg. It doesn't explain. It doesn't perform softness to stay accepted.
There we
It
go.
just
We have
exists.
drilled those bad boys
Fully,
down to a smooth nail bed.
unapologetically,
I clipped the nails off.
They used to ignore your
my real
boundaries.
nails down.
Now they
Because it's
hesitate
better for them
before
just to
speaking.
be cut down.
They used to forget your value. Now they flinch in your
Hold on,
absence.
let me get...
You don't need to convince them anymore. Boundaries. Now they hesitate before speaking. They used to forget your value. Now they flinch in your absence. You don't need to convince them anymore. You just leave and let silence do what words never could. Not because you're cruel, but because you're done. You've forgiven things that should have been remembered. You've stayed when you should have walked. You've swallowed shame like water and called it grace. But not anymore. Now, your silence isn't fear. It's consequence. Now, your gaze isn't pleading. It's discerning. Now, your absence isn't rejection. It's a message access denied. This is the new face of strength. A man who no longer raises his voice because his presence already speaks. A woman who no longer explains because her silence now draws lines they won't dare cross. A soul who no longer fears solitude because solitude has become sacred. They don't slam doors. They don't send long texts. They don't ask for closure. They just vanish. And the world adjusts because nothing terrifies a manipulator more than someone they can no longer read. No longer bent. No longer reach. You used to be available. Now, you are rare. You used to overgive. Now, you offer nothing that isn't earned. And they feel it. In the space you once filled. In the calm you once offered. In the warmth they took for granted. You don't want revenge. You want silence. You want peace without having to bleed for it. And now, you have it. Because love, without self-respect, isn't love. It's dependency. Kindness without consequence isn't.
Is this? Hey, Nikki. What a crazy turn. The world knowing you stole your sister's life?
Sometimes we dig.
Kindness. It's permission. And forgiveness without standards isn't healing. It's self-erasure. So, if your heart is beating slower now, if your mind feels heavier, that's not fear. That's memory. That's the version of you waking up. The one who stopped apologizing. The one who doesn't need to be saved, only remembered. Because from now on, you're not the one who stays. You're the one they regret losing. You weren't weak. You were just unguarded. You weren't invisible. You were just surrounded by people who couldn't see anyone they didn't control. You weren't too much. You were just in the wrong rooms, trying to stay small enough to be held. But that version of you, the one who kept bleeding quietly, for people who never even asked if you were okay, is done. You no longer soften to be chosen. You no longer explain to be understood. You no longer stay, just because they noticed you're gone. From this moment forward, you will not trade your dignity for connection. You will not lower your standards to avoid being alone. You will not apologize for the cost of access to your life, because your peace is expensive. Your silence is heavy. Your love is sacred. And your absence will be felt like a door closing slowly with no explanation. They didn't hate you. They just never feared losing you. And that is what changes now. Let them adjust to your distance. Let them wonder what happened. Let them replay the silence again and again. Because the new you doesn't need applause, doesn't need validation, doesn't need to be invited back in. You are the invitation. You are the standard.
Period, sir.
You are not here to be liked.
Period.
You are here to be remembered.
Period.
In your absence, this isn't a performance anymore. This is a declaration. You are no longer accessible. You are no longer explainable. You are no longer bendable. You are sovereign. And from this point on, the world either respects that or gets replaced by it.
Period. That's that Machiavelli mindset for you. That Machiavelli mindset for you. Come on in, y'all. Listen to that Machiavelli mindset. A whole different type of mindset right there. And it's crazy to me because some people will disagree with that. But the thing about it is, God gives all of us different levels of understanding. That's the part. Some people don't want to admit it. But that's real talk. That's real talk right there. Some people forget that God even created Satan. Although God never told Satan to go and do what he did, but you know what I'm saying? He still created him. Who are we to judge him? Just like we can't judge somebody based off of what they do in their life. We all got that same free will. You see what I'm saying? It's when the lines get crossed. The lines get crossed when you start trying to have a self-righteous kind of mindset over other people. That's what I believe. Now, everybody's entitled to believe what they want. So we're not going to go there. But, I mean, I'm just giving out real talk with Cash. Real talk. So the next video that I'm going to do is going to be me retwisting my hair. Because I'm finna go watch this. I'm tired of looking like Shabba Rank. Okay? I'm just all set on that. So this is the mess from me taking my nails off. And my nails is like, they not that bad. Look, y'all, they not that. I know it's looking worse than what you probably could have thought, but I'm just saying, they don't look that bad. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. So I'm going to go and I'm gonna find another video for us to play with.
What do you say to men and women who feel like they've been rejected a few too many times and they're losing that faith and ability to feel that there is someone out there for them?
Just to be careful on, are you actually not matching or are you disliking who you're matching with? Sometimes what's happened is because of social media and because of dating apps, we enter relationships with almost like a double standard or a sense of comparison or comparing people to our algorithms. We're saying, well, if he's not the dream guy or she's not the dream girl, if he's not a high value man and she's not a high value woman, we start to look at our matches with a level of like distaste, when sometimes the better thing to do is look at the people who are matching with you and try and see that, are they actually that bad? is there something wrong with them? Or am I just comparing them to a dream idea of a partner that I haven't actually been able to access? I always just think the more you like the person you are, the higher your self-esteem, the more you like people who like you. When you've got low self-esteem, you chase after people that you can't access. So my advice to people is always start with who likes you. Always start with that pool, and then home in on that pool and see if you've got similar demographics, values, so on and so forth. But where people go wrong is they glorify the people that they're not matching with and wanting a love that they've never been able to access, and then comparing they do get matched with these alternatives that aren't really real. So the better thing is to focus on who does and maybe adapt your standards to those people who are actually invested in you.
What do you say to men and women who...
She hit it right on the head.
Beautiful women don't show their skin in public. Rich men don't show their money in public. Because real wealth and value is silent. Beautiful women...
See? It's out there. That's just some little juice we got, whatever. Let me just clean up this other nail. Then I'm about to go wash my hair. And I'm going to start a new live. But yeah, it's wild out here. People watch too much Instagram. People be on there like thinking that they can get somebody on there just because you see them online. Like, them people online, some of them not even real. Then on top of it, you got to think about it. If you see them all going on the beach and going on yachts and stuff like that, and you ain't got that stuff, that mean that person kind of out of your league, because they doing stuff you can't do. And then when you try to, if you try to go around them, you're not even gonna be able to live up to that lifestyle. So it's not gonna be able to work for you. Like, it's not gonna work for you like you might think, just sitting there fantasizing about it. It's probably not gonna work out for you, because the way that they choose to live their life, you know. And it's unfortunate because some people be having some real high hopes on you. I ain't never said I want a 6-figure gentleman. Well, maybe I did. But not exactly 6-figure, at least. I say you got to be making more than me. That's what I said. I said you got to be making more than me, and shoot. I'm getting some decent money, so that's why I'm saying that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I get some decent money, so you really gonna have to make some money to make more than me. Like, not to be like tooting my own horn or nothing like that. I'm just being realistic. Like, but I think that that's a fair assessment for me to make. Honestly, that's a fair assessment. Like, you're not finna come over here broke, and I'm not. Like, what is really going on with that? That's kind of weird. Why would you even want to? You know what I'm saying? Why would you even want to as a man? Like, I know why you would want to, because that means you really wouldn't like me. I don't let little stuff like that go unnoticed, because, hunty, if you let something like that go unnoticed, like, you look at the person that you with and you like, we kind of really don't look like we even really go together. I mean, and you ignore it, something's off about that. Like, I don't know. It'll be a problem later on down the road. Like, you just gotta be realistic out here. I ain't gonna lie to you. You just gotta be realistic, because some people is just not realistic. I'm 5'9", and I still take a short man. Like, none of that matters to me. But you know what's crazy? For a short man, it might matter to him. And that might be why he got issues finding a woman, because he don't want to date a woman taller than him. But, and you know what? For a man, like, I don't know why that would ever even bother them. Like, I don't know, but I think it bothers some men. I think it really, really bothers them. Like, and you know, I'm looking at a man like, you a man, baby. So I'm not really thinking like, you know, me being tall would really bother them. Like, you know, or a woman being tall would really bother them. That's a whole grown man. You know what I'm saying? Like, regardless of how tall the woman is, that's still a woman. You know, like I never really like could understand why. It was just, I never really got that, but you know, to each his own. Maybe some people, maybe it's like a preference thing, you know, I can get with that, I can understand, you know. But as for me, I'm too grown to be worried about how tall you is, you know, that just means I can't wear no high heels, and I'm okay with that. They not good for your feet anyways. I ain't gonna hold you. That's all I have to say to you. If I get a 6'5", then I'm not gonna be in no heels because I'm gonna be red bottoms out, okay? There's gonna be a reason, honey. But no shade, no tea, no shade, no tea. Yeah, I never had no issue with no short man. Why? That's what I mean. Especially if you want to pay them bills, who complaining? I'm sorry. People gotta stop complaining. Okay, y'all, I'm about to go and wash my hair and then I'll be back with another live to retwist my hair so y'all can see the whole process. It's just a process. Oh, wait, where's the... No, did it stop? Wait, my fingers. You can't see my fingers. No.